Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new reaction and review. Tonight, guys, I'm taking a look at a movie from 2012, and it's the latest from one of my favorite directors, Quentin Tarantino. That movie is Django Unchained. Now, as some of you might happen to remember, about 6 months ago, I covered the only other Tarantino film I had never seen, and that was Jackie Brown. And I didn't like Jackie Brown. In fact, it's the only Quentin Tarantino film I can say I did not like at all. So this thing I'm kind of hoping is going to be more like his other works, and I can herald it as an absolute classic. But the only way for me to find out is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Django Unchained. Wow. I really wasn't expecting him to shoot the horse in the fucking head, but god damn it, that looked really fucking cool. God damn it all. Tarantino knows how to make some shit look absolutely awesome, and apparently blowing up a horse's head with a fucking point-blank bullet is one of those things. Well, guys, there is one thing here which is common with every other Quentin Tarantino movie. The music in this thing's fucking amazing. I'm loving this. Wow. Quentin Tarantino's able to make a joke about fucking like Klan hoods and make it funny. I really fucking like that. That is certainly original and different. That's fucking marks, man. That's awesome. Okay, is there any reason why Django had to be taught how to shoot, you know, a guy in the fucking crotch with perfect accuracy? Okay, everything else made total sense, you know, like shoot him in the eye, you shoot him in the chest, you shoot him in the head. Why the fuck shoot him in the crotch? Is that just to make sure that you don't, you know, kill him? Because so far every bounty they've had to get has been dead or alive. Plus, you could have shot him in the leg. That's usually the more logical thing. I guess it just sort of bothered me, okay? That he wanted to target practice by shooting a snowman in the fucking crotch. It just seemed a little off to me. You know, guys, I really have a feeling that Django is getting a little bit too much into his black fucking slaver character, you know? I mean, okay, yeah, it's really cool and it's really badass, but I have a feeling he's getting a little too into character. It's a little off-putting to me. I totally understand, I mentioned this before, guys, but this fucking soundtrack is absolutely beautiful. This song is just fantastic. Once more, yeah, guys, if there's one thing that Quentin Tarantino can do even better than make awesome films, it's select fantastic music for his movies. That's amazing. You know, guys, I really don't know why, but there is something incredibly creepy about Samuel L. Jackson's character. I really can't put my finger on it, but there's just something about him just creeps the living shit out of me. It's kind of odd, yet still his character is incredibly compelling. It's kind of odd. Okay, does anybody else find it weird that Candy had a skull of a former slave, and a hacksaw and other surgical tools in a bag just that way he could do this presentation at some point to somebody? Does anyone else find this just incredibly odd and way out of place and strange? Makes you almost wonder, like, what if he has to do this presentation again? Does he have, like, a whole, like, storeroom of slave skulls to do this with? Or maybe I'm just reading into this a little bit too much, but god damn it, it's just fucking weird. You know, guys, I never thought I'd get to say this. I don't think I've seen a gunfight in a Western this bloody since I watched the fucking Wild Bunch, man. That's fucking amazing. This is Actually, shit, guys, this actually is one of the bloodiest gunfights I've seen in any movie, regardless of genre. That is saying a lot. Okay. I believe that is probably the most creative way to kill anybody. You shoot them when they're holding on to a saddlebag full of dynamite and just watch them explode. That was fucking awesome, man. Fucking loved that. Wow. Alright, Django's pretty good. Oh, for the love of fuck! Did he really have to shoot that dude in the dick? More importantly, did they really have to put a squib on his crotch so that way it looks like his dick exploded when the bullet hit? That was absolutely disgusting. Mind you now, the rest of that shootout was cool, but that was fucking sick, man. Well, guys, that was Django Unchained. Holy shit, what an awesome way to go out. Alright, I'm gonna shut the movie off. Okay, it's time to talk about this movie. I guess before I get into the proper review, I believe I'm gonna need to give out a couple of warnings for people in case they want to watch this. Number one, it is a period piece set in the pre-Civil War South, and they are not afraid to use the N-word in dialogue because it makes the film realistic. So if you're one of those people who absolutely has to have your films as PC and as sterilized as possible, you're not going to like this film. Number two, it is from Quentin Tarantino, which means that it is incredibly vulgar and it is incredibly violent. So if you're not into foul language and you're not into violence, you're going to want to avoid this movie. And number three, it's from Tarantino, so it's also lengthy as shit, guys. This movie clocks in at 2 hours and 45 minutes, and if you're not into lengthy movies, you might want to avoid. However, I will say that if you do sit down to watch it, it is 2 hours and 45 minutes well spent. Now, with all of those out of the way, it's time to talk about the movie itself. Let's talk about the writing. Guys, ever since I started this series, one thing I always harp on is the lack of character development in these movies. And Quentin Tarantino comes and kicks down the door and says, "This is how you fucking do it." Every single character who has more than like 2 minutes of screen time are heavily developed to the point where you actually will care about these characters. You will either care about them enough to want to watch them live, or you will hate them enough to absolutely revel when they die. That is what you need. You need to be able to care about these characters. And Quentin Tarantino, as always, is able to absolutely deliver with that. And guys, that is probably one of the best parts about this movie, is just how well developed the characters are. And also as I talk about the writing, I should mention the humor. This movie has some incredible humor buried in there. At one point I mentioned the joke about the, Klan hoods. Well, they weren't actually Klan hoods, but they were close enough. And the dialogue from that scene almost sounds like something you'd hear from Monty Python or from Mel Brooks, and it somehow worked here. It worked incredibly well. It was ridiculously funny, and it also sets up the big finish for that one sequence in the film. Very well. It is really a nice way to use, comedy to kind of sort of finish out that one portion of the story. It was great. And and we also have other bits of humor buried in here, and all of it is done very well. Characters here, as I said, are developed incredibly well, and once more with dialogue, I will have to say that Tarantino kept this thing as realistic as possible for the setting and for the time period. So once more, guys, if you are horribly offended by people using racial slurs, especially in a movie about a former slave turned bounty hunter, then yeah, you might not want to watch this. It's obviously not for you. So, guys, writing here is probably some of Tarantino's best, and that is saying a lot considering the fact that damn near every one of his movies, at least to me, again, minus Jackie Brown, have been incredibly strong. This has probably the best writing of any of his films, and I am not saying that lightly, okay? This thing is fantastic strictly on a writing standpoint. But then we get into the acting, and the acting absolutely shines. Every single actor takes their role and does nothing but fantastic things with it. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, the reason why Samuel L. Jackson's character is so creepy is because he is because he is so friggin' manipulative throughout the entire film, and he does it just with this incredibly creepy, like, tone, to his voice and his body movement. Everything just makes him stand out as one of the most off-putting characters that Sam Jackson has ever played. It is just fantastic. It's awesome. Same thing can be said about everybody else. Jamie Foxx and Leonardo DiCaprio. All of these guys are doing great things. And all of them, first of all, are all fantastic actors in the first place. All of them are awesome performers, but somehow Quentin Tarantino was able to get even more from them than they usually do. This guy is probably one of the best performances I've seen involving Jamie Foxx, or involving Sam Jackson, or involving anybody else in the film who I've seen in previous outings. This is their best work. This movie, guys, absolutely glows with awesomeness. Special effects. Let's talk about special effects. This movie, as I said, is incredibly violent. It is incredibly bloody. It uses tons and tons of squibs for gunshots, and I know that Quentin Tarantino is a little bit of a cinema buff. I'm going to assume that the reason why the squibs are so just absolutely explosive and bloody as hell is probably a reference to movies such as The Wild Bunch, which I also mentioned when I was watching the movie itself. Because The Wild Bunch, I believe, was using like squibs that were like 2 or 3 times as powerful and had 2 or 3 times as much blood packed onto them as they normally do. So basically, when people get shot, it almost looked as if they were getting hit with a fucking cannonball. Same sort of deal happens here, only now there's far more gunshots. So basically, everything just gets painted friggin' red with the mountains of fake blood that just sprays everywhere. So yes, once more, if you are not into violent films, you're probably going to want to avoid this, even though the violence is, for the most part, incredibly cartoonish. It still might be too much for some people. Camera work, as always, Tarantino absolutely glows here, but the one thing I didn't notice, and perhaps maybe it's because I wasn't looking for it, Quentin Tarantino in every one of his movies is known for having an incredibly long shot. One that usually takes about 1 minute to 2 minutes, and it usually tracks a single character, and it just follows, and it's one continuous shot. I didn't see that here. I probably just wasn't looking. I probably wasn't looking for it. I usually don't look for. I usually don't look for the oneer on the first viewing. Since I'm probably going to watch this in like 2 days, again, I'm probably going to notice it then, because at that point I know everything which is going on. Then I can start looking for more of those Quentin Tarantino hallmarks. So yeah, I would just like to say that I didn't notice it here. I did notice it when I was watching Jackie Brown, but that's partially because that movie was so fucking dull. I was looking for anything to hold, my interest. This thing here, I was just so absolutely sucked into the story that's probably why I didn't notice it. But everything else, as always, when it comes to Tarantino, everything is laid out beautifully. It's shot perfectly. Lighting here is fantastic. The soundtrack. Guys, if there's anything you should know about a Quentin Tarantino movie besides the fact that they're lengthy, they're violent, and they're vulgar, they always have fantastic soundtracks. This thing is no exception. What other movie can have both Tupac and Johnny Cash on a soundtrack and have it flow perfectly? This thing did it, as well as having tons of other music from other fantastic artists. I'm almost tempted to go and pick up the soundtrack for this thing, because I really loved almost every song which played on it. That is just amazing. So guys, when all is said and done, am I able to recommend Django? Yes, because it is by far, without question, Quentin Tarantino's best movie ever. And again, I'm not saying that lightly, and I'm not saying it just because I'm a fan of almost all of his previous films. This thing has the best writing, has the best soundtrack, best camera work. This thing, guys, towers over fantastic movies such as Kill Bill, Pulp Fiction, and Reservoir Dogs. I want you to just put that into perspective here. This thing is going to have a very bright, shining spot on my Blu-ray shelf. The only thing I honestly kind of sort of regret is I chose to watch the DVD from this combo pack, but the good news now means that when I give this thing a second viewing, I can watch the Blu-ray copy, and I can watch it in beautiful HD on my 40-inch TV. I'm fucking happy about that. So yes, guys, if you get the chance, you have to see this movie. It is fucking fantastic. It is amazing. I loved every frame of it. The only thing I'm also kind of sad about is that I didn't watch it in theaters. Why? Because I wanted to save it for reaction and review, and now I'm kind of kicking myself because, God damn it, I could have seen this fucker in theaters, man. So yes, guys, if you haven't seen this thing, check it out. I can almost guarantee you are going to fucking love it. And with that, folks, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.